Did something go wrong, or was it all as planned? The Rhode Island DOT says demolition of the Washington Bridge late last week in this video went just as it should. Here to talk about that video and more, Director Peter Alviti. Thanks for being here.
Thank you.
So, Director, that video went sort of viral this weekend.
It did. It
raised a lot of eyebrows and speculation that something went wrong during the demolition of the Washington Bridge. RIDOT says that's not the case, but I have to ask you to level with me here. When you look at that video, do you say to yourself, that looks excellent?
Yeah. So so there are different contexts, you know, for the untrained eye and people that are not around demolition in projects like this all the time. It could look rather destructive, particularly if taken out of context. If all you see is a section of a bridge just collapsing, without knowing all of the context around it, it could look rather violent and rather upsetting. But in the context of a demolition project, a multi-million-dollar demolition project, for which the primary objective is to knock an old structure down so that we can build a new bridge there. There are plans that are developed for the orderly kind of destruction of bridges like this that are commonplace throughout the industry. You've seen buildings in other states actually exploded, and they look very violent coming down. There's a lot of debris and dust and everything. Well, similarly with bridge demolition, this was a planned set of circumstances. The contractor submitted a set of plans on how they would demolish this section of the bridge. They were approved. They were reviewed and approved. And the contractor executed that plan this weekend for that section of the bridge. And it called for them to demolish the two ends of the beam and then demolish the center of the arch of the beam so that once the center came out, it would fall down onto barges that were placed below, specifically placed there to catch that beam when it fell in two pieces onto the barges. And the barges actually had a kind of a protective layer of timbers and mats, absorption mats, shock absorption mats, that when it fell would absorb part of the shock. And then the debris would be made to fall onto those barges.
So none of the barges were damaged and no debris went into the ocean?
There were actually an exceedingly small amount of what you see falling went off the edge of one of the barges. They were probably maybe 1 foot diameter cobbles that will be picked up as part of the demolition process when that area is cleaned up and those barges moved.
And we've seen some photos and videos of the barges partially submerged, or maybe they appear to be damaged. You're saying they're not? They're not. Okay.
So they're made to do that. In other words, they're made to be, in some cases, abused or used like that to allow the debris to fall on them. The intent is to keep that debris from falling directly into that river. So there were literally tons upon tons of debris that fell onto those barges. So it worked out precisely the way it was meant to work, that the contractor would break the two ends of the beams and then the center of that beam, that arch, so that they would collapse, the beam would collapse onto the barges down below, and that's precisely what happened.
I guess my follow-up question then would be, we've now learned that the Occupational Safety and Health Administration, or OSHA, is now investigating one of the subcontractors, J.R. Vinagro Corporation, in connection with the demolition of the Washington Bridge. J.R. Vinagro has not commented. Why are they investigating then?
So right now, the indication is that they went to the site because of the extreme amount of media conversation that was going on. They saw the reports. They often deploy their personnel to these kinds of incidences to make sure that everything was in order. All indications are that they were. They'll do a deeper dive into it. They were out there yesterday, their inspectors. They did not issue any citations yesterday, nor did they stop the work. If there were extreme violation, they would have done that. However, OSHA investigations extend for long periods of time once they initiate them. They extend for long periods of time. Our office has been in touch with the contractor and with the OSHA folks. And OSHA tells us they're going to conduct this as they do any other job inspection. It'll end up with a report, could be months from now. But we'll be in touch with them through the entire process to make sure there's nothing that we need to do as an agency to assure the protection and safety of people out there. Ultimately, it's everybody's top level of concern that safety is provided to any of the workers out there.
Let's switch gears. I want you to put on your RIPTA board chairman hat for a moment, if you will. There's been some criticism of Governor Dan McKee's budget proposal for the organization. It leaves a roughly $32 million gap in funding. Transit advocates are concerned that this will result in cuts. The governor's office says RIPTA needs to look at new revenue options and, potentially how operations are going. Do you think if the funding proposal remains the same, there will have to be cuts, and what would be on the chopping block?
I don't know yet. RIPTA is in this stage between being an old RIPTA and transforming themselves into a new RIPTA with a new leadership. The board has selected a great individual to head up RIPTA as their new CEO. He's embarking on a study that will be an efficiency study of the agency to make sure that whatever level of funding they do receive or have received is being used absolutely at its highest efficiency, and then determine a path forward to create the RIPTA of the future that we all want. The key, I think, is, and I think what the governor's asking for in his budget, and what the legislature actually asked for when they asked for a study like this to be commissioned. Now that we have a new CEO in place, he will be in charge of that study to study the things he thinks needs to be studied in order to get more efficiency into the agency. And then once everybody knows what the peak performance and efficiencies can be provided as a result of that, we can then begin to look at future funding for the agency and see how that agency can be transformed with money being used at its optimum. And I think we're in a great phase. This is a transitory phase in RIPTA, and it's a very exciting phase because I think under the new leadership and under the board supervision and with the guidance of the governor and the legislature, everybody is looking to make this transit agency the best that we possibly can. And I think that's where we're at. We're at that transition.
It's a new year, so I want to take a moment to look at the future. The Senate confirmed you to an open-ended term as RIDOH Director in 2023. You're the longest serving cabinet member currently. How much longer do you see yourself in this role?
I don't know. Every day is a challenge for me, and I still find the job, probably in my 75 years on the planet here, the most interesting thing that I've ever done. There is always, this weekend as an example, there is always a challenge that presents itself every day. I wake up in the morning asking my maker, thanking him or her for the opportunity to be here another day, and asking for guidance to make it through the day and make the proper decisions as he would have me do. I do that every day. I enjoy it every day. There may be a day when either my boss, the governor, or my big boss, or me says, that's it, I don't see that. I see a lot of challenges, wonderful things happening at DOT. We've got some 40 projects going right now. We're building bridges and roads all over the state. More construction and more new roads and bridges than ever before at DOT. I have probably the best staff that any director could ever want. They're young, they're energetic, they're innovative. A group of contractors and consultants that we have worked wonderfully with them. So I'm concentrating on that. We've got a lot of great things to do in the future, and I'm happy to be a part of that. And I think everybody will know when the time is right.
Last question for you. Providence Mayor Brett Smiley told us a couple weeks ago that the city is in the process of acquiring the Crook Point Bascule Bridge. People probably know it as the bridge that's stuck up. in the Providence River. So they're acquiring, the city is acquiring it from the state, from RIDOT. What does that process entail?
It's simple. It's a simple transfer of the property from us to them. We've been in discussions with them, our attorneys, their land people, ours. We had a budget set aside for demolition of that. We were moving forward with that when the mayor said the city would be interested in acquiring it from us. I think we can reach a mutual understanding of maybe $1 that would be suitable for that transfer to happen. We see that as a benefit because those funds could be used for other great projects in and around that same area, possibly. And the mayor has a vision and wants to develop a vision for use of that as an iconic kind of element to the fabric of that neighborhood. So look, we're working with them and we're excited about the things that the mayor is excited in, and we'll see if we can't make it happen.
Rhode Island DOT Director Peter Alviti, thanks for being here.
Thank you.